in the world of elite Hollywood, or in the world of these places where these high-end actors and people can go to without being bothered by paparazzi or being bothered, how weird they might possibly actually be when you have people who are in their characters, or the next character that they're working for, or going through these weird regimens around you that are exclusively available to just them. So that would be the surface of Jimmy Tree's character as the method actor. But as the method actor, his powers of observation had to be very skillful. And he was the anchor in the movie of observing this atmosphere. Whereas you just kind of take him in the beginning as a weirdo just watching. But his watching, I would like to say, in real life, I love this type of person. In real life, outside of movies, this type of person I like to call, these are still waters. I like to call them still waters. I love still waters. They're dangerous as hell. But for whatever reason, when it comes to a type of being, from the opposite sex from a man, I love still waters. Still waters run deep. I'll take a quiet, observing man over one running his mouth fucking 20 miles per hour any goddamn day. I run my mouth 20 miles per hour. Can't be two of us. But in real life, this type of person is called a still water, and they can be dangerous because still waters run deep. They can be dangerous because someone who sits back and knows the power of observation, knows how to skillfully watch who's around them, watch the people around them, that can be kind of a scary person. Jimmy Tree's character in this movie is a still water. Now, for his sake as a character, he's a still water because he is a method actor. But what the director Sorrentino was able to capture through Jimmy Tree was more powers of observations through the people around him. So we was able to watch even more odd or motionless acting through the eyes of Jimmy Tree, played by Paul Dano. Now, to go into Paul Dano, he's done a lot of work himself as an actor. I think that he started with a little more teenager type movies and comedy type movies, and he's found at an earlier age to just go right on into serious movies. He's got roles in movies like The Little Miss Sunshine, Fast Food Nation, which I have seen, at The King, so forth and so on. But this movie, as I've mentioned, there's a lot of movies I see a lot of different actors, a lot of the same actors in, but then there's a particular role or a particular movie that will, for me, stamp that actor's name as a name or a person I'll come to pay attention to. The roles Paul Dano has played in thus far, he was in the movie Live, also was in The King, not too memorable for me. This role as Jimmy Tree will be memorable. Now, there's a very, I'll say unnecessary, but it didn't diminish my opinion of this movie. Maybe the part, I didn't like the way Mick Boyle's character ended more than this particular part in the movie where Jimmy Tree had to actually go into character for a very negative figure in the world. What that part of the movie expressed to me is that at the end of a method actor's observation comes them stepping into that role. They actually have to become that person. And a lot of people are still taboo on negative characters in the world. Somebody's got to tell the story, right? I do think when it comes to telling the stories of negative characters in the world, a beginning actor or an actor who is isn't as noticeable, we'll have to be careful, because the audience that you're able to create being a young actor, and when you're able to capture a young audience, that audience will stay with you throughout your career. I.e. me, those young or teenagers or young people that are affected by that movie will come to be affected by movies in the future. An older person watching the movie, well, there's more life, because we don't want to diminish the life in this comment that an older person has, but their ideas and ways of choosing movies that they like are kind of set versus a younger person. And if an actor takes on a role before they're established that is a negative character for young people, it can kind of be like, oh, I hate that actor because of that movie. And it can actually affect future movies that they're in. Now, to make that statement a little more easier to understand, I'll take the example of Billy Zane, which I love Billy Zane. However, the very first time I saw Dead Calm with him and Nicole Kidman and I think Sam Cole, I can't remember his Sam something, but Sam Neill maybe. Dead Calm. The first time I saw Dead Calm, I was probably 9 or 10, and because Billy Zane was such a good villain, he took me through so many different emotions as a kid. You know, I wanted him to be the good guy. I wanted him to like her. When they actually had a sexual scene, I didn't understand it as rape like it was or whatever it was, but he was such a good villain. It was hard for me to embrace him in future movie roles. In fact, I wouldn't come to even be able to kind of like him again until his role in Demon Knight. Now, there are several other actors and roles that I can give as an example to this. But for the movie The Youth, Jimmy Tree's role as a surface level to this movie had to play a negative character. And that part in the movie stamped to what level his way as an actor was being developed at this posh, exclusive place. But the stuff that was below the surface, that you had to look more in depth to, the skill to which he observed people around him. And even while he observed people around him, and you kind of thought that this was a deep thinking, heavy character, oh, he must be serious. Unlike the children's roles that I spoke of earlier, when he spoke, you found out, no, he's not deep at all. He's just an actor, copying, so to speak. He wasn't just the man distinguished sitting back observing the still water. He really was just doing a job, because when he spoke, you understood that that's all he was a method actor. That different interactions with one of the children in this movie and one of the other stars in this movie would come to add depth to him as a person, the character Jimmy Tree. But on the surface, where he is put off as this heavy person, the children were more heavier than him. And again, I don't want to ruin the movie, but the level to which his skill of observation had to be portrayed, I applaud the director Serrano for capturing. You had to capture his way of observing, to where before the movie kind of unfolds, you just kind of take him as being the person watching everyone, but he is just merely a character. Another favorite part of this movie will go back to I think it's a story in the Bible where you never know know if it's a story in the Bible, but it's a story where an old homeless woman approaches someone's doorstep and asks them for, I don't know, food or something, and gets turned away at every turn. Then you come to find out, and gets turned away at every turn, and you come to find out this older woman or this older homeless person was Jesus himself. And kind of seeing people's level of compassion for someone that isn't polished or who isn't at that social status or class status. You know, there's a level of Paul Dano's acting where he kind of you not only find out that, okay, he's not this in-depth person, but he's a shallow piece of shit. And he kind of gets shown his face by who he would consider inferior. First by the child, and then by the character of, I think it was Miss Universe, is whose character showed this man his face. So the movie Youth overall, I've discovered just in this movie Reverence, where I thought I had a handle on 3 or 4 levels. Just in discussing it, there were so many different levels and layers that this writing offered. It had to be created and yielded by a person of not only master observation, but the ability to capture and tell a story through motion. I've done a movie review where I consider a lot of British films. I applaud a lot of British films for this, in that a lot of the movie is portrayed through the writing, not through the visual effects. Now, I like a movie with visual effects, horror, I love all kind of movies, but I particularly like the movies that I give a chance. It's hit and miss sometimes. You watch a movie like this, or you watch a British movie or a movie outside of your normal movie choices, and it's like, oh shit, that's 2 hours I'll never get back in my life, you know. But then there's those movies that something in it just jumps out. For the movie The Youth, or actually Youth, because in real life I think this is something that real people have to begin to look at differently. We have to reverse the, oh, I'm growing old and I'm pathetic, and oh, my heydays. Look, my grandma lived to be in her 90s. So let's look at that. I think, let's just say average, on average. But they got us trying to die off earlier and earlier as years go by. But let's just say 60, 70, which I just can't even say because I'm living to 100 as far as I'm concerned. But let's just say 80 years old. 80 years you live, 80 years. And you spend 60 years reminiscing, pining, crying, remembering, regretting, etc., your youth. People in the world have different ideas of what's young. I would lean more towards the people that eliminate the whole idea. But some people consider mid-20s as no longer being young. So let's just say for those people, your first 20, 25 years of life. Now, 2017, you're 80 years old, and you've spent the last 60 years. Oh, I remember when I was 20 this. I remember when I was 20 that. Hell, maybe one thing happened when you were 30. How do we embrace growing older? Not something I'm going to ponder too much deeply here on this movie Reverence. But if this is a question, if this is something you struggle with, if you're stuck on seeking out ailments and not embracing what could be the next part, not the last part, not the end part, the next part of your life, I would implore, observe this movie. Observe this movie, not watch this movie. Observe this movie, Youth. Youth youth may not be wasted on the young. The old is just too busy putting they old on the young, and the young is new. They don't want to hear what's old. Once the experience was new. Youth.